I am a polite British man, and this is the enhanced version of the Jeff Rubin Show. When you hear this noise, a picture relevant to the conversation will pop up on your listening device, just where the album art would normally be. Please take a look, as it will make the whole experience just that little bit sweeter. Your podcast is about to begin.
Jeff Rubin Show. I am Jeff Rubin, here this week with Pete Holmes.
Hi.
Pete is a stand-up comedian. He is a, very funny stand-up comedian, voice on Ugly Americans. He is the star and co-writer of those popular Batman videos that we talked about with Oren a few weeks ago.
That's true.
And the E-Trade baby.
Also true.
But the subject of today's episode is your recently started, already popular podcast, You Made It Weird.
Already popular podcast.
Isn't it? It's already popular.
It is already popular. Somebody just, I did a video recently, and it was for Nerdist, and I was like, I'm Pete Holmes. I'm the host of the popular, when I ask people to do it, I always say, like, it's, how do you say it? How do you say, like, people listen to it? Like, I'm not wasting your time. Because there's just so many. I do any podcast. I'm doing this because we're friends, but I do little podcasts. I enjoy, like, a niche, like Seattle, 50 comedians listen to it, and 3 of them are involved in making it. I do all of them. But when I'm trying to get somebody bigger, like your John Hams, to do it, you want to be like, who hasn't done it, by the way?
But you recently met.
I did ask him, yeah.
Is he going to do it?
He said he was going to do it, yeah. I actually, he said, yeah, I emailed him. I have his email.
Already, that's cool.
Yeah.
Already, even if he never comes on the show, you've already won.
I know. One time I asked him to do a storytelling show, and he emailed me back, and I was like, what the fuck is happening? It was unbelievable. I'm such a huge Mad Men fan. And then we did this video together, and I was like, I'd really like you to do it. And what I said was, I was like, people like it. It's like people enjoy the show. That's what I say. It
is, not that I'm constantly refreshing the comedy podcast rankings on iTunes or anything, but I have noticed it hanging up there in the top. Yeah, definitely.
I'm not trying to be humble. I don't do that. I obsess with certain things. I read the iTunes comments.
Oh, sure.
And if it's mean, I go ahead and check it wasn't helpful. That's what I'll do.
Your small measure.
Yeah, I'll be like, no, it wasn't helpful. And if it's really nice, I'll be like, very helpful. But I don't look at the numbers. It kind of freaks me out.
So he said recently started. How long ago did you start it?
I think we've done like, oh God, I should know this. It's roughly 30 episodes, about 30 plus, maybe.
It's like 6 months, maybe.
Yeah,
something like that. Anyway,
but for a while we were only doing 1 a week, and then we started doing 2 a week. I remember Kumail was like, "Don't do it, man. Don't do it."
I kind of thought that too.
Really?
Well. So one reason I'm so excited to talk to you about this is because I started a podcast not long before you did, like a month or two before that, for all intents and purposes at the same time. So I've been figuring out myself, and when I saw you, this is I'm not complaining. I love doing this. Like, listeners, I love you guys.
Yeah.
I'm not complaining about the work you have to put in, but it's already time consuming. When I saw you were like, we're going to start doing 2 a week.
Yeah.
And the week you started doing 2 a week, I think you did 3 a week, like that week or the next week.
Yeah.
Special with TJ.
There have been a couple, because that scandal happened, and we were like, we're going to put out 3 this week. I don't know. It hasn't bit me in the ass yet. Like Chris Hardwick, who's on the network, he like owns the network that I'm on. They're doing 3 a week now with his podcast Nerdist. And I was like, don't you worry that you'll run out of content or something will happen. You'll get really busy. He's like, then we'll just go down to 1 a week. I was like, oh, I guess so. People will be disappointed. But it's nice to get it out there. I think people are backlogging them anyway.
So why did you start a podcast? What made you start one?
It was Marin, man. I wish Marin was my nemesis. It would be so much more fun if he was. And I think he's made a couple attempts to to be my nemesis, but he's only been helpful. He's been so nice and kind and like very atypical of what you might think he would be like, maybe based on how we interact with each other when we're on microphones. But he's so nice. I read an interview with him where he was talking about that podcast was the closest thing to stand-up. It was as satisfying as stand-up. And it wasn't really to get hard ticket sales, although that's something people were saying. It was just because I was like, if somebody that's been doing stand-up for like 20 years is saying a podcast is the same level of juice, he gets the same level of enjoyment out of it, I was like, I'll just do it. I'm sold. I'll do it. So I just started to do it. And it was really weird because the timing was perfect because Nerdist was looking or hearing pitches for podcasts.
Oh, okay.
And then I mentioned it. I remember I was in the UCB green room and I was just being like, I was like, I'll do a religion podcast because that's part of the show, and I'm really glad I didn't do that because a lot of people hate the religious part of the show.
You mention that every time the religious part comes up.
I go, I'm so sorry.
Everyone hates. And
for every, I think it breaks down like for every one person that hates it, 3 people will email me and be like, that's their favorite part. But there's nothing else anybody says that they hate about it other than maybe my laugh or whatever. But like, typically, people hate the religion part and love everything else. But a lot of people love the religion part.
When you started doing the podcast, I want to go back to these first months when you're like, you know what, I think I want to start doing a podcast. And I'm projecting here because this is what happened to me.
Yeah.
Did you at all feel embarrassed to have to tell your friends I'm starting a podcast?
Yeah, no, it is weird, and that's why
it's almost like starting comedy all over again, where you have to like make this declaration of like, you know what, I think I can do.
I was just thinking about that because I was talking to somebody that's newer in comedy, and they were reminding me of how you like have to invite your friends at the beginning, and you're like not even good right away, and you're afraid it's gonna suck, and you're gonna be embarrassed, and you're also entering a very long line of people who are also podcasting. So I knew it was a little bit of a sorry. Can you do my podcast? Somebody who said it, they were like, "Can you do my podcast?" Is the new "Will you drive me to the airport?"
That's funny,
and that's
I bet especially in LA too.
Yeah, yes, exactly, because there are a lot more rides to the airport, no cabs. You're right.
Oh, I just meant there's more podcasts. There's more of both.
Oh, there are more. It's like that's how we hang out. That's another reason I like it. A lot of the episodes like Sarah Silverman and Jim Gaffigan and Dimitri Martin, they all end with the same thing, with them saying, that's the longest conversation we've had. Because we're a weird group. Comedians, it's like, if I was like, ask Sarah if she just wanted to like eat lunch and talk, she might do it, but it's going to be like, probably not. She's going to be much more inclined if it's like, will you come do the podcast? And we'll do it, and it'll exist. We'll do bits. It'll be fun, and then it'll be a thing that we have, like a little time capsule of a conversation. There's something about the performer that wants things like on the record. When Chelsea and I go out to eat now, we'll say things, and it's like, why do we even talk off mic? There's no need for this because it's just evaporating. We want it to exist. If we do a bit, we want people to hear it.
That's so frightening that you.
It is frightening
that you can't live without that. I mean, we haven't. This will be the longest conversation we've had.
It's funny that
I'm not even recording this.
You just wanted to hang out.
I just want to hang out.
I do too. But it's weird. That's a perfect example. You and I have been friends for like a decade, and now this will be the longest conversation that we've ever had, and it's because we share a compulsion to share our dumb thoughts with people.
I just wish that they had come up with a different name for it besides podcasting, because I do think it's great. And I think it
sounds like Pog.
It's just like I really do think it's this really exciting new medium with the most unlimited potential.
Yeah.
Almost it could be as big as stand-up or anything like that. But God, the name podcasting is it's already getting dated.
It's like it's right behind ham radio. Do you want to come experiment with Vlad and his ham radio and then do Pete's podcast? But it's funny that you say that. I love getting lofty, so you're going to have to reel me in. Me and Duncan Trussell, I'm stealing this thought from him. He has a podcast as well called the Duncan Trussell Family Hour, which is great. And he and I were talking about it. We were drinking, and he was like talking about Ginsberg and all the beat poets and all those guys, and he was talking about the audience that they had to get their thoughts out. And these are a lot of thoughts that Duncan is putting out there, like free love and all that, and drugs and experiments and stuff on his show. And he was like, those people had 1/10 the audience that he has twice a week. You know what I mean? He was just like 40,000 people, and those guys started the 60s. You know what I mean? So there's this weird responsibility, like Spider-Man style, where it's like we are getting all these weird thoughts out there. I certainly feel a little bit of a burden where I'm like, this is changing people's lives. Sometimes I get emails about people emailing me about often a crisis of faith that the show caused for them, or a revival of faith that the show caused them. It goes both ways. Anything you can experience, I think you can find some moment on the show.
Some supporting evidence for it.
Yeah. That's kind of that's my fault as a host, and that's also, I think, my strength as a host, is I'm not very critical. I'm not really interested in challenging people and being like, that's stupid. I'd rather give them a lot of green lights and see where they drive. You know what I mean? Whereas like I think a lot of shows and a lot of better typical traditional interviewers would be like, I take issue with that. And then now what? You stop. But I'd rather like let the line out a little bit and see where they're going to go. And it really does delight me.
What was the pitch for your podcast when you pitched it?
It was the title, man. Once I came up with the title, I was like, that's it. Yeah, I was going to call it Keep It Crispy. Keeping It Crispy with Pete, because I was so obsessed with Keep It Crispy when the show started.
I like your use of the past tense there.
I remain obsessed with Keep It Crispy. It just as I'm saying it now, it does put me in a better mood. The idea that you can be like, I think it's so interesting the way that the brain can be hacked and kind of tricked. And if you go, like in the morning, if I'm having a hard time getting out of bed, I'll literally be like, keep it fucking crispy, man. And I'll get up with a little bit more vigor. It's crazy.
I was just listening to you on the way over here interviewing Mike Lawrence.
Yeah.
And you described like this woman from McDonald's and she wanted her fish fillets to be, and you were like, did she want them crispy? And you like, no, I don't want to use that word.
Don't tarnish that word. I wanted to, it means like clean and tight and, bright and fun. I love it. So what were we saying? Oh, so the pitch was, then I was like, I said to my manager, I was like, it's either going to be called Keep It Crispy or You Made It Weird. And he was like, well, you have to call it You Made It Weird because that sounds like I was very deliberately taking what Maron was doing. And I was like, I'd like a show that the conversation will get uncomfortable or weird. I'm not going to try and do that. I just think that's what's going to happen given the things that I like to talk about, like sex and God and comedy and
Did
philosophy.
you ever listen to any podcasts before Mark Maron's?
Nope. Not even ones
neither.
that I was on. You'd think you would. But,
No, I don't listen. I've done other podcasts too, and I was there. I don't need to live.
Yeah, I was there. And even the ones that I love and adore, like the Nikki Glaser episode and the Emily Gordon episode, I don't listen to them again. The Duncan Trussell episode, those were like some of my favorite things in the world, yet I don't listen to them again. I can't do it. It's too much me. I'm me all the time. And then I have to listen to more me.
If there's two of you in the room.
It is. There's two of me. I'm listening and then I laugh at myself laughing. It's too much. It implodes.
So do you listen to them at all after you're done recording?
No. I can't.
It's just stop. Post.
The only one that I listened to was Maron's. And I had to get drunk while I was listening to it because I wanted to make sure it was okay because it was such a blur. I was so concerned with him having a good episode and
it was very good.
Thank you. In the back of my mind, I was like, I really want to do his show, and I was like, this is kind of like maybe a foray into.
But you'd been on his show, right?
I've done his show, the live one, which I just did a live one of my own show.
That's why I want to ask: does a live one not count as much?
A live one doesn't count as much.
And
absolutely
you
not.
just did a live one last night.
I did a live one last night.
There's like 3 things I want to talk about. I gotta.
Well, after the show, every single one of them, I was like, you got to come and do an hour. I was very clear to be like, thanks for doing it. Jim Gaffigan had already done an hour. But I was very specific to Jesse Klein, Michael Ian Black, and Matt McCarthy. I was like, you got to do a full show. That's just it's a different thing. That's like a talk show, and then there's a podcast. I
want to go back to a few things there, but the first one is Mark Maron.
Yeah.
Because when you were saying that Mark Maron like kind of made you start the podcast, I relate to that, and I've said this before on the show. I had a similar thing where I think that's what was the gateway podcast for me.
Yeah.
But more than like the actual content of the show or the format or what was on the show, it was just the idea that podcasts could be good.
Yeah.
Like, I would look forward to Mark Maron episodes like I'd look forward to an episode of Mad Men or a book or a magazine or something like that, and I could enjoy it just as much as any of those things, but in a completely unique way. And I was like, oh, this is really a thing that you can do something with.
Maron's podcast changed my life. I tell him that all the time. In those sweet, genuine moments where he's not breaking my balls and I'm not loving it, I'm like, the Maria Bamford episode made me start going to Al-Anon. Not Alcoholics Anonymous, but people whose parents were alcoholics or whatever. And my parents weren't like traditional alcoholics, but it was enough to kind of put me over the line. That's a big thing.
Yeah.
That's what I'm talking. Like, this is like that. Became things that I discussed with my friends, became stuff that I discussed in therapy, really made huge strides for me personally because of a podcast that I listened to because I just thought was interesting. But it dramatically affected my life for the better. And then I was like, there's one of my bigger lofty thoughts that I bring up a lot is that I think there's a ministry to it. I use that word because I grew up religious, but I do like trying to share what I know and what I've figured out so far. I get frustrated when I'm like, I just saw some movie, and I'm like, it was the best. And they're like, yeah, I know, I saw it on Thursday. I'm like, then why didn't you fucking tell me? I hate people that keep it in. Let it out. I want to let everything out.
That makes a lot of sense.
Right?
Coming from you.
Right? Yeah. I don't like keeping things in. It hurts me to keep things in. In fact, it's an anxiety reduction for me. If I'm anxious about something, I want to talk about it and talk about it with as many people as I can and get as many people to feedback about it. And then I go, oh, I'm not crazy or I'm not that weird. Everybody worries about that. Everybody feels that way. And then I relax. It helps me a lot. And then like speaking of the Nikki Glaser episode, we talk about like the Oedipal complex.
Yeah.
That was like
You made it weird.
That was yes, I did, and that was a decade of therapy boiled into 90 minutes, and I
less than that because the first
right because of the Hardwick part.
Right.
There was just like there was a part of me that was like, we did something today that I know will help people because that's such a fucking thing that nobody talks about. I'm fascinated with it. That you call your girlfriend baby. You know what I mean? That your girlfriend, you call her mama. Some people call their girlfriends mama. All the booby sucking and returning to the vagina you came out of stuff. It's really weird stuff. And I'm interested in it and getting people to talk about it on a show and then having people email me and be like, I never thought about that, but I have this weird thing with my parents too or whatever. I think everybody does. Then they shed it.
You are, you can probably tell if you've ever listened to Pete's show, something of a deep guy. You have these deep thoughts. And I don't know that's something people knew about you before this podcast.
Isn't
it's not
fun?
Totally prevalent in your act.
Absolutely, man. The podcast, Pete, is the purest cut of me. That's what's so great about it. I'm trying to elevate my stand-up to the level of the podcast, which is weird.
Yeah.
Because I've been doing stand-up for a decade and I've been doing a podcast for blah, blah months. But I've been having good conversations. Like, I mean, my whole life, I'd like to think. And I never really thought that we were getting that deep. But it's nice for people. It's right now, it's nice to hear you say that. Because I'm just doing what I've always done. But now we're doing it on a mic and people enjoy it.
You were saying, this is the second thing that I want to get back to from that 130
wow,
second
you're better
chunk.
than me. I'd have to write it down.
I'm working on it. I'm not listening at all to what you're saying. They're about letting it go and like giving them the string, just seeing where it goes.
Yeah.
You do not edit your podcast.
No.
I edit the shit out of it. I don't edit the shit.
Oh, you do?
I edit a little bit.
That makes me feel good.
I edit it like...
Because I've had a couple tangents. I'm like, that didn't really go.
Oh, I don't think I take out like, if I record for an hour, it'll be like 58 minutes. It's here and there, little things. Particularly, this is maybe more of a... There's two types of episodes I do. Some are like more interviewing and some are more bullshitting with friends. This is probably more... This is actually an interesting mix.
Yeah.
The interviewing one, sometimes I'm like, well, does this ever happen? And they're like, no, that didn't happen.
And then you have to take it out.
Yeah, then I'm like, all right, well, that's just boring.
Yeah.
But I talked to Jake and Amir about this after they were on your show, which was so fun to listen to.
Was it?
And
good.
So Amir asks on that's something I'm going to take out. Now I have to leave it in. Now I have to leave it in, but that is the kind of thing I might have taken out.
Yeah, leave it in.
It was easy and just hanging there.
I want, at least with my show, sorry to interrupt you, I want it to feel like you're having dinner next to us. You know what I mean? In fact, I'm not even trying to do an interview. I'm often trying to recreate conversations I've had. A lot of the questions I'll be like, remember when you told me this? And I'll be like, try and retell that advice to people.
I don't think I'd cut it up. Like, I don't change it to a completely different beast, but it's shaving off some of the rough edges. Anyway, Amir had asked you, like, I think in the episode, or we talked about it afterwards, that you don't edit it.
He was surprised.
Yeah, he was surprised, and I was somewhat self-conscious about that because he was on mine a little bit before that, and I was like, was that because you were on mine and I edited mine?
Yeah.
And he's like, no, and I was talking to Jake about this too, and they were like, no, we just, instinctually we'd expect him to.
Right.
So you don't, and I asked, when I did Kumail's podcast, I asked him, same thing, does not edit at all. So here's my theory I'm going to run by you.
Yes.
I think maybe for me and Jake and Amir, it's like we want to edit it because we come from the internet. And that's like kind of where we have done most of our work. Jake and Amir do live stuff too. I do too, to an extent. And you primarily come from stage and you do web videos and stuff like the Batman too. And I think, for us, for the internet, we're like always trying to like, the thing I always say about making videos for people online is that they have their hands on the buttons to be watching literally anything else that was ever made in just a matter of seconds. So we're always trying to like really shape it down to like, whereas you come from a world where it's like, I got 10 minutes on stage. Everybody,
no matter what I do.
Do you think there's anything to that?
Absolutely.
That wasn't really a question. I just like wanted to tell you my
I think
theory.
that's a great theory because Kumail and I are both the type of performers that really enjoy the messy parts of stand-up. I love, it's actually kind of a problem. If there's anything that I have to like coach myself on while I'm on stage, it's not to abuse the control that I have for a short time over the crowd. I might lose it too if I play with it too much.
But I think that's the highlight of a Pete Holmes set.
Yeah,
that's almost anyone's set. Of almost everyone's set. Like
I'll
the best
get on
parts,
stage
off the rails.
and I can do my most worked out, thought on material and deliver it perfectly on a given night. And then maybe one guy will be wearing a scarf or yawning or something will happen, and that interaction and that weirdness that comes from it, even if it doesn't go somewhere good. It doesn't have to go somewhere perfectly, because going to a bad place also makes us feel something. You know what I mean? It makes the audience feel dread and stuff. And even if you can, I think as a performer, it's my job in that situation. I'm talking about live stand-up where something goes wrong. I think honesty is the salve for that wound, and that you're just kind of like, I feel terrible too. Now I'm worried if I'm going to be able to get you back. You know what I mean? But like, whatever you can say about that moment, we're experiencing something that you couldn't really see on television. If it was on TV or if it was on the internet, you would turn it off. But if it's live, you have to feel it and go through it. And we all have to go through it together.
Yeah, I was talking to my friend Dave Cho, who you know.
Yeah.
And
Joseph.
I was just saying, I don't remember what I was just talking about like the length of these podcasts and whatever. And he was like, I was like worried if it was too long or something, and he was like, "No one stops listening to podcasts. There's no too long. You just put it on and it just goes."
Yeah, that's right.
And I think that's true.
And there's an interesting thing when I listen to podcasts. I think I would be disheartened to know that people probably listen to my podcast the way that I listen to other podcasts, which is kind of, I'll be cooking or something or in the car.
Well, what am I going to do? Just like sit in a sensory deprivation mood?
That's how the show is best absorbed. No. But like there are parts that I just miss. You know what I mean? You tune out.
Oh,
you're just
sure.
Paying attention, but then you come back.
Especially like if I'm listening to your podcast, I'm just like in and out.
Yeah, in and out. I kind of go in and out. That's a new line in the Batman, by the way. We just did new Batmans, and Batman is in the suit, and he's like. What did he get wrong? He got something really wrong. And they're like, what are you talking about? He's like, full disclosure, it's really hot in this suit. I kind of go in and out all day. I love the idea of Batman
just like zoning
blacked out some of the time and then comes back and tries to keep having a conversation about crime.
It's funny with Batman because he's so like laser focused on
I know.
like crime and his responsibility to his mission.
Yeah, but that suit is really hot, by the way.
Yeah, I bet.
He would be going in and out. I climbed a ladder in that. Nothing. It was like the closest to Bale's suit you could get, pretty much. I was like, you can't do anything in this suit. You can't see. You can turn your neck and stuff because it's the newer neck suit, but it's like, it's really fucking hard to do anything in that suit.
So what you're saying is Batman is unrealistic.
That's what I'm saying.
Batman could not actually happen.
Yeah, which is kind of depressing.
Related to you not editing the show, you also don't really have an intro to the show. Every episode of You Made It Weird more or less starts out with the guest being confused that you're already recording.
Yes. Also something I don't know if I stole that from Mirren. I think I did. He just begins. I definitely did.
Yeah, but
I feel like he tells them maybe that we're going to just start talking.
Yeah, I don't know.
Does
he edit his show? Do you know?
I don't think he does either.
I don't think he does, but
that's also that stand-up. It's a weird thing, man. Psychologically, I am burdened with the idea that I want my thoughts recorded, like a sculpture. I want it to exist. I have these conversations, and it frustrates me that they just go away. So I have to deal with the psychology of that. What does that say about me? Also, the relationship with the fans is really weird, and I'm kind of okay with it. Like we did the live show last night, and they are my friends. I know that's weird to say.
By the way, pretty big deal.
No small potatoes.
Yeah,
30 seats were still left. We couldn't sell it out. So close.
Holiday. It's a Passover weekend. It's Easter.
Yes. Thank you. 30 is not bad.
Certainly, there were 30 devoted Jews who would have been there.
Yeah, certainly. Passover. Yeah. There were 30 empty seats for 30 Elijahs.
Right.
Hey-o.
Elijah humor is so prevalent at Seder's because it's just like it's kind of a silly thing where you have to open up the door for the ghost, so like everyone's kind of got a crack.
Oh, really?
Is Elijah gonna figure out where we moved to? Like everyone, there's like so much Elijah humor at Seder's.
I've never been to a Seder.
It's kind of. I'm surprised.
Yeah,
you would obviously love it.
I know. I would love it.
It's kind of the silliest part.
I would love it. But what
we did this?
Go ahead.
We did this. I'm going off on a tangent now. Pete
no,
Holmes
please.
Style.
Yeah, do it.
So we had
bring up your divorce.
we had our Seder last night. And there's different Haggadahs, which is the book you read out of. And then the one that my family has, which is like a third generation Xerox. We just have a stack of them, which is funny that we're like, I don't know if did we pirate the Haggadah? That doesn't seem right.
Oh, God.
And but this one in particular has a lot of everyone reads in unison, and then it's like a full paragraph of text.
Oh, no.
Which is not like a really supposed to be.
Is it Hebrew or English?
It's in English, but it's like my family does not speak Hebrew. I don't speak Hebrew, and it's very creepy to have like everyone just reading.
Oh yeah,
blocks. Like we're all just. And I actually like Passover because the thing I think you would like or you would appreciate about that makes it interesting as a holiday is that there's no temple, or maybe there is. There's not in the way I do it. I'm not even sure. But you like have it with the family, and like you just like celebrate in your home, and like you take it as seriously as you want to.
Right. We never. There's no Christian real equivalent of that. Of like we're all gonna do this sort of theater. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like a kid asks this, then we eat the horseradish, then we open the door. There's nothing like that. We fucking goys eat ham and are passive aggressive. That's what we do. That's Easter. It's the worst.
We don't take it very. I bet most people that celebrate, I'm being very cynical here, probably don't take it particularly seriously.
Yeah.
Well,
that sounds even better.
Yeah, it's
You're
good.
joking around.
Yeah, it's fun.
And you do it every year. I mean, like the little traditions that we have.
We have running gags. Like there's like
gags.
There's Rabbi Tarphone, who we call Rabbi Carphone, which is like a dated running gag now. Carphones don't even exist anymore.
And its assistant, Rabbi Dax Machine. Thank you. I like that. We just don't have anything. I never realized what an affront it is that on Passover the non-Jewish people are eating ham. Just to be like, filthy beast.
Well, they don't usually line up, or this year they particularly the same weekend.
Yeah, they did today.
Fascinating. I'm glad we got that in there.
I am. I love Jewish stuff. You know this.
Yeah, you do love religion. I remember when we were traveling and we went to see Religulous, the Bill Maher movie.
Right, in Texas.
And you were like, I want to see this. I was like, I don't really want to go see it. And like you were like, no, I really want to see this movie. And I was like, all right, whatever. And there were a few of us, and we were like, all right, whatever. And we went and saw it.
Wasn't it on a religious holiday?
I don't remember.
There was something about it that it was like.
I think we were in Texas, which
we
was
were in
maybe
Texas opening night, and we were like, no one's going to be there, and very few people were there.
But it was fun. Like we were like, it was the first time I'd ever been in Texas. I believe we were in Dallas, and I was like, oh my, like it's going to be crazy. It was totally fine. There were like completely normal people there seeing the movie. Of course,
yeah.
At the time, I was like, that's weird. He wants to see that movie that much. But in retrospect, I'm like, oh, now I get it.
My Netflix queue has known that I've been losing my faith for 5 years. You know what I mean? Like, all my movies are like, the God that's a sham. Like, if you liked the God that's a sham, you might like, they told it to control you. I don't know. I actually am open to spiritual ideas more and more, and then less and less. It depends on when you're talking to me.
It seems like the format of your show is now that intro, and then like you start talking about something, and then usually you wind up falling into comedy, and then and then you move through sex and religion.
Yeah.
When it started, like that first episode with Kumail, you were like, "Here's the format: is I'm going to read three weird things about you." That seemed to be abandoned, like almost by the end of the Kumail episode. It's like at the end of the.
It didn't make it through the Kumail episode.
Like by the end of that one, you're like, I think what else is on here? We covered all this.
We did. Well,
it's fine. It's
a good stand-up set is when I don't look at my set list. If I'm looking at my set list, that was a bad set. I didn't find them. They didn't find me, or I didn't, open up for them to get into me. That sounds kind of weird, but you know what I mean. So I'm looking at my notes. So I'm like, no, I'll do museum, But if I'm just up there and they're giving me enough energy and enough life, and I'm giving them back energy and life, and my brain lights up, then I'll go like, of course I'm going to do museum. You know what I mean? There's just like, it's almost like they're telling me what I should do next. I'm like, oh, they like that one. They'll like this one too. And the podcast too, if I'm looking at my notes, it's a really bad sign.
Do you find that the audience has changed since you started doing this podcast? Like the crowd at the Gramercy Theater last night, like if you were selling out Gramercy based solely on your stand-up, they would know you and be familiar with your work. But the people that went to the show last night, they know about your divorce, they know about your religion, they really know you.
They know things my mother doesn't know.
Right,
That's why.
So do you find that changes the crowds?
Oh, yes.
For stand-up too?
Yeah. I couldn't get away with. I don't lie much in my stand-up, but there would be stuff that if I was saying it in my stand-up, they'd be like, obviously, we know that about you already. Like you kind of have to like go from a base of we know everything and then go somewhere new. I can't do any like introductory stand-up sort of stuff because they're like, yeah, we get it. I did a live show once and I did a joke about how I feel like a youth pastor. And they're like, that's nothing new, Pete. We know that about you. Like, yes, go somewhere new. Whereas if a crowd is just there and they're a fan of my stand-up, they'll kind of listen to anything. But the crowd is the best. It's the best. I had no idea when people were like, doing a podcast will open you up to your fans. That just sounded like selfish to me or competitive. And that just didn't appeal to me, which is dumb because it's the best thing in the world. I've said this many times, and I know I say that on my own show a lot. I'm like, I've said this before, but it's like a relationship. Your fan base is your girlfriend, basically. And if I'm a guy, and I am, and I'm the boyfriend, and my comedy is the boyfriend. If you show up in their life twice a week reliably, I come here this time and I spend 90 minutes with you, then I come again on this day and spend another 90 minutes with you, then that's something people can get behind. They're like, that's my friend Pete. On Fridays, his podcast comes out and he and I drive to work together, or he and I go to the gym together. It becomes friends. So when I do the show, after the show, it was just like another 45 minutes of hugging people, basically, which is the best.
Yeah.
And they really do, maybe I'm wrong, but they sure seem like they actually care about me. And I care about them because they're weirdos. They're people that these sorts of thoughts, this sort of discussion resonates with them. So we do have something in common. I don't know if they're divorced. I don't know how many pumps they put in their ex-wife before they came the first time they had sex. They know all that about me.
This is common Pete knowledge. If you listen, this is now if you listen to other podcasts that aren't even Pete shows.
Yeah, exactly. That's right. Your fans now know this about me.
So what you're saying is you get along with people who are willing to listen to you for 3 hours a week.
Well, that's the other thing that I was going to say. That's a weird thing to discover about me. You'd think people are like, isn't it weird that your fans know everything and you don't know anything about them? I'm like, that's kind of where I want to start things. It's a nice place to start because we can only talk about them. Like we meet and there's no need to bring them up to speed. I was talking to a weirdo last night. I was like, I'm hanging out with Joe tomorrow. And they're like, Joe Mandy. They don't know Joe Mandy. They just know I'm friends with Joe Mandy. Great. We've cut out all the work.
Yeah.
You know everything about me.
And isn't that what you want, ideally, especially when you're starting out as a stand-up, is to like get on stage and everyone already knows your character and your persona.
Exactly.
And like that's, I don't know. I was going to say 90%. It's probably not that much. It's a lot of the work.
It's a huge thing. And them connecting to you and liking you is big. I mean, like they'll let me get away with things that I wouldn't be able to get away with if they didn't have this sort of intimate knowledge of me.
Do you ever worry that you're going to only be funny? I don't want to say you'll only be funny, but you'll start only appealing to your fans and you'll lose your chops, which you haven't. But I'm saying because you have this fan base that you will.
It's a great question because it's already starting to happen. I did Meltdown in LA, and that is a group that if you say this guy's the host of You Made It Weird, people will cheer. And then I come up, and then they already know me, and they already like me, and I'll get this false sense of how well the material does. Then the next night, I was at this place, and it was just a normal show. Nobody gave a fuck about this podcast.
What?
I know, right?
You guys don't listen to my podcast?
It's not that big of a group, right?
I mean, there's some people that will just. I have like good friends that I think would love and fans or whatever that would love this show, but they're just like, I'm never going to listen to a podcast. They're just not going to, and
it's not going to happen. And I performed for 300 of those people, and then I did some of the same material, and it was more personal stuff. It was stuff that actually, it was a bit that came from the podcast that I'm now doing as a bit about how if I'm going out and I think I might meet a girl, I'll do these pathetic little things like make my bed and clip my toenails.
Right.
And it's turned into a bit now, and it works. If they already know that about me, that I'm this like kind of this guy who's not real versed in like picking up girls or whatever. I don't even know how to say it. Then they're already laughing. They're like, Pete's being Pete. Whereas a crowd that doesn't know me, I'm kind of like, I have to explain to them. I have to be like, so I'm not really like a fuck guy, and I have to make my bed. It's embarrassing. It'll work like 30% less. It still worked, but they didn't know me, so they didn't give it to me as much.
I mean, you talk a lot on the show about the difference between like it's sort of like just the difference between the alternative rooms and the clubs in general, where they're more embracing, but can give you a full sense of security. But now it's even more so because they know you from this other thing.
What'll happen is you'll do 10 minutes. You have 10 minutes that works at Meltdown, and then over 6 months it'll turn into 6 minutes that works everywhere. That's what should happen. A lot of, if I can shit on my own scene, a lot of our alty people or roomy people that do rooms over clubs, never file it down to the 6. They'll keep doing the 10. And I'm a believer that you need to do both. You need to do cardio and weights, as I said before.
Yeah, it's a good
I kind of think it's the perfect metaphor. That's why I keep using it. But like, I know some guys that are so fast but couldn't fight to save their life, and that's what a club can be sometimes. It'll be a fight. It'll be win them over, make them happy. Like they're spending $150 to be here tonight. If you see a couple, that's $150 probably with the drinks and the tickets and everything. Fucking show them your muscles. It's a muscle show. They don't want to hear about your journal and your Spider-Man comics.
We were saying that there's some people that'll just never listen to podcasts, and that's fine, I guess.
Yeah.
But there's also the other side of the coin where there are people who will consume it like the morning it comes out,
and listen to it multiple times.
Yeah. And I think that's the power of it. It's such an intimate connection you're forming with someone.
Yeah.
I think. No, I think that's true because I kind of pulled back because I didn't want to sound like I was like bragging or something. But as a fan of podcasts, it's like it's not just like watching a short video on the internet. Someone's like in your head for an hour.
It's actually the perfect response to Twitter and YouTube and all this like short, fast burning fuels that we enjoy. And then here comes like we're basically doing radio. As you were saying that, I was like, it's weird that you can put on a podcast, as I will, and clean the house and feel connected to people. Mm-hmm. Like, that's another trick our brain is doing. It's like we're hanging out with friends. Yeah. We're not alone.
I will do that sometimes if I'm like grabbing a slice of pizza in between places and I'm eating by myself. I'll listen to it and it's a little less sad.
A road trip with podcasts. It's like I drove to work with you basically. And that I feel like that used to be something like grandma would wear her nightgown all day and listen to the radio softly, and that seemed kind of sad. And now all these young people are putting on podcasts at work. So people are listening to this at work right now because they have something that they can do while they're listening to something, which is great.
Yeah.
So much better than music I think.
It's also just so much nichier, and you can like find a show that is for you specifically.
Yeah.
Like if you think you are a dragon and you want to hear a show about other people that believe they're dragons, like
you can find it.
There's 4 shows for you.
Well, that's what
that did not exist with Grandma on the radio.
No, absolutely not. You just had to listen to the news and like one talk show. Now you can find anything. That's absolutely right.
I mean, you can find like not only can you listen to like interviews with comedians, you can find your exact flavor of interviews with comedians.
Yep, exactly. Even with the similarity between Mark and I, the show styles, now you have 2 choices that are kind of similar, but very different hosts. So now we're dissecting an already dissected medium.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
You, if I'm gonna assume, you seem like someone who believes that they are going to do stand-up for the rest of their life.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, no doubt.
Now you've been doing podcasting for 6 months. Do you think you'll be doing this forever?
That's a great question. I love to ask other podcasters that question because sometimes when you start getting overwhelmed, currently, You Made It Weird is, I think we have 5 or 6 episodes backlogged, and sometimes that starts to freak me out. We have a lot booked.
Is 5 or 6 a little or a lot?
It's a little.
Because this is going up next Tuesday.
Is it really?
Yeah. See, I'm living recording to mouth here.
Yeah. See, that's great. That'll give you some urgency. And we have no problem booking people right now. Sometimes I think about it, I'm like, maybe we'll do 100 episodes, but I'm like, I can't stop doing it. I'd rather just have guests on again. I'm always changing. I'm not saying that to sound interesting. The show is... I think everyone is. I think everyone is. Right. I think everyone is. If they're my kind of person, they are. Mm-hmm. I'm constantly contradicting myself. Depending on the episode, like I just said, depending on the episode, I'm either feeling real gaudy and spiritual, or I'm kind of like, yeah, it's all just science. And I love both sides of that. And like, that's just the journey we're all going on. So I think what I'm saying is it is sustainable. Because the human experience is sustainable. Like, I'm going to have new things to say in 6 months than I do now.
I can imagine, I can even imagine in like 20 or 30 years, and I can't look like 5 years down the future and tell you what I'm going to be doing.
Right.
But like, I can imagine in the distant future that I'd still be doing this, but maybe less frequently, like only when I really want to do it. But it's really hard to imagine permanently shutting it down.
I think, if you want to get real weird,
Let's do it.
I think the future...
It's my show, but what the hell?
Yeah. I think what's happening is what's going to happen... podcasting is the beginning of the complete dissolving of privacy. Facebook and Twitter and all that stuff began it. I'm a full participant in it.
Mm-hmm.
I tweeted.
You have a lot of material about that, which is very funny too.
I know I do because
I'm like fascinated by that too. So.
I'm at odds with it. Yeah. I fully participated in it, and then I'm like, it's ruining everything. And then I tweet that I'm in the Shake Shack line. I mean, like, you could go find me. Not that I'm like I'm not saying I'm a celebrity, but I'm like, you could go and find me if you wanted to say hello. I just tweeted where I was. Mm-hmm. Shaq does that. Shaq's like, I'm at TCBY. Come say hello. Fans will come up to him. Not that he's hard to spot anyway. But I believe that this is the beginning of my understanding. I don't understand the I love the singularity. I think what's going to happen...
I love the singularity.
Yeah, you do know that, right?
Yeah,
it does come up a lot on the show, on my show. I mean, I think what's going to happen is I can't foresee how it's going to be, but I think in the future, everyone will be not podcasting, but kind of uploading their personalities to things.
Oh, I loved what you said about Twitter. You loved Twitter, and it was a great invention. Just the idea that you could share jokes is a better invention. I forget what you said it was a better invention then, but something that's actually
I remember you emailed me or something or texted me about that. I remember that. I
couldn't even finish the story. Everyone at home was like, what? What are they?
No. I think it was something like my dad would make a corny joke, and it would just go out the window.
Right.
And now I can see myself making jokes with my kids that they don't like. I don't have kids, but I mean like texting and then tweeting it and then having it be received. I love that. It really is a connecting, wonderful feeling.
Yeah, and I've heard that thought before, but what I think the spin you put on it was that this is as great an invention as the cell phone itself.
Oh yeah, I'm a big Twitter person. I don't tweet that often, but I do enjoy it a lot. But I think that's what's going to happen. I think in the future, the way that we share everything and the precedent that almost podcasting is setting of these, especially these soul sharing podcasts, I think in the future, it'll be kind of absurd, the idea of secrets. It'll just be like, of course, let's say that it is some sort of atmosphere, like the cloud, and all of our personalities are up there. And the way that you can find your podcast that you like, the way that by listening to podcasts, I think there'll be new ways to search and find exactly the type of people that you want to merge with, almost spiritually, but through technology. And we'll just kind of connect with each other. And the idea of unplugging from that system, now I'm lifting this from Transcendent Man, which is the Singularity movie. He's like, the idea of unplugging from that system would be so lonely you'd shoot yourself in the face.
You must have a very interesting Netflix.
I do. You should watch. That is on Netflix Instant, which is the perfect way to watch it because it's all about like technology, and you're like, I don't even have this movie. It's coming through the air.
I'm totally on board about the privacy being destroyed. I think you're totally correct, but I don't know that podcasts. Because they're still broadcasting that it's like a single person putting it out there. Like I think Twitter and Facebook are a piece of that, but can you imagine like non-comedians, non-entertainers, like the people that have podcasts now, just like normal folk having podcasts and broadcasting their life that way, and not, I guess, being a more mundane one. Not that like mine's incredible, and I'm above the normal folk, but I hear
what you're saying, but there isn't a fan of my show that wouldn't want to do it, that wouldn't want to be on the show.
Yeah.
In fact, I made a joke that I was talking to somebody in the audience, and they were an ex-Mormon, and I had all these questions for them. And then I was like, I just come up here, we'll just do it. And I mean, everyone cheered. We didn't have time. But I mean, that's the thing. Maybe they don't have the training or whatever it is, or the need to be entertaining all the time. But I think people are going to start realizing that can be a good feeling to give up. Oh no! Now I sound like I'm going to build Terminator robots and start the end of the world. This sounds like a podcast that's going to start Skynet, is what I'm saying.
That's definitely how important this podcast is. It's definitely going to start Skynet.
I don't know, man. There's something liberating and kind of lovely about getting it all out there and having people respond, growing by committee. It feels like a community. The weirdo community. They interact with me and I interact with them. People email me articles. People send me books.
Do you respond to every @ message?
Not every @ message. I used to. I try and fave as many as I can if I liked it. If I want to be like, hey, I read that, but I don't reply to all of them. I kind of want it to be a little special.
But you reply to emails.
I do try to. I on a long enough timeline, I will reply to every one of them. There aren't that many. People don't email the show that much.
You plug it at the beginning.
I know you'd think.
I guess it's new. I don't know.
Yeah, you'd think people would email. And, I actually kind of don't need them to be emailing that much. I'm waiting for my first I hate you email. That hasn't happened
Really?
yet. Yeah, there hasn't been.
That is quite an accomplishment.
Yeah, but it's like we said, we're long enough in the show that I think the people that are going to listen to it are listening to it. And then more people like them will find it. But we don't have too many haters, which is pretty nice.
So we kind of got away from, you did a live show last night.
Yeah.
I listen to a lot of podcasts. I don't love live podcasts.
I skip the live ones of Maron's. I never listen to the live one.
Yeah.
It could be Brian Regan, Steve Martin, and, it doesn't matter. I would skip it.
Yeah, I'll listen if there's someone I really, really want to hear on it. Like I listened to you when you were on the live one. And assorted others. But yeah, generally I'm much less excited. When it's a live one, I'm like, oh.
What are you going to get to? I'd like to...
Well, the thing is, I think the strength of maybe podcasting as a medium, and particularly of his, and of yours too, is the intimacy of it. And you could, you destroy that when you're in a theater, and there's a lot of pressure to get
Be
people
funny.
to laugh every X amount of seconds.
You can feel it. There's an egg timer, 30 seconds.
But you're, I think the only live one you put out so far... I think the only live one... See, that's an edit. I think the only live one you've put out so far is the South by Southwest one. which was great.
Thank you.
And did you have a different approach for that?
I was nervous about that one because we did the live one last night. I was so much less nervous. I was so happy. I love that feeling of progress of being like, oh, I've done this once before.
This was your second live one that you recorded last time.
This is the second live one. And even just doing the intro, doing the Gamefly ad live, knowing a little bit about how it was going to go, trying to if you go and watch Conan or something, Conan comes out before the show. Mm-hmm. I don't know if you've ever been to a taping, but
I have.
So any host, Jon Stewart comes out before the show, Conan comes out before the show. So I was like, we got to do that. We got to get rid of that like jitter, that sort of like, does anybody have any questions? Or like, I'd like to say hello before we start the show. So now I know that we do that, and I know how long to do that for. I feel like, and to like put them at ease a little bit. But it's a completely different beast. I was going to say that.
If you don't listen to Mark Maron's live ones and you generally don't like them so much, why are you doing them?
It's so fun to connect with the fans. I do it for the fans. I really do, because it's so great to see them there.
But couldn't you just do stand-up and like bring, Joe and Chelsea and all these people you usually bring up?
I don't know if that would be as fun
I guess
for everybody.
These people probably already heard you too.
I consider doing stand-up at the top of this show, but it's almost like... just to not use it on the podcast, but just like do a show first. Show's too long anyway. I don't want them laughing at my stand-up and then going. It sets the wrong tone.
There's definitely a amount of time that a comedy show should be, and it should not be any longer.
Yep. And this was 90 minutes. And what's funny is I'm starting to develop the skill of knowing when we've hit 90 minutes.
Yeah, I'm like periodically glancing over at our thing.
If I can say about the one that we just did, and I'm giving myself a compliment here, which is also therapy. I'm simultaneously like incredibly big ego, Jesselnickian almost, and like very proud of myself, but also very cautious about sounding that way. But on the podcast last night, Gaffigan and I got deep. It got kind of quiet and deep for a while. Like we didn't really force comedy on part of the conversation, which I think was good. There were a couple moments where it was like, oh, it's quiet. And it's just like the podcast.
And it felt good, like in the theater?
Felt good. Yeah, it didn't feel tense at all. I mean, after a while, the comedian's instincts of like, I got to get a laugh, I think will melt away, especially when I hopefully demonstrate to them how okay I am with not getting laughs. It's kind of a theme of the show. Like if I go on a tangent and it doesn't get a laugh, then that's what happened. Let's address that. That's the idea of making it weird. That's why turn away from that? Why edit it out? Why act like it didn't happen? It happened, and we all feel a little different because it happened.
Yeah, I think that stuff always does the best. And we briefly alluded to this earlier when you're watching stand-up, because if you're talking about whatever it is you're talking about, most people in the room, if you're good, they have a frame of reference and they know what you're talking about. But if something weird happens in the room and you start making fun of it, everyone in the room has the same frame of reference and they know exactly what you're talking about. Yeah,
and you can share it.
Yeah,
exactly. So I do live ones. That's a great question. Why do a live one if I hate them? People really like the Judd Apatow one, and I'd like to use it as kind of like a training ground for, a new experience. I'd like to become good at doing that sort of thing.
So that sounds like, an ambition to evolve the show or to try different things on the show.
Yeah.
Maybe. Do you have other things you want to try on the show that you're not doing yet?
You mean on the podcast?
Mm-hmm.
Well, yeah, I'd like to start mixing it up with multiple guests. Like I've said, I'd like to have Duncan, someone who believes in most things, and then have, in a very intelligent way. He's not like he's
he just believes anything.
Yeah, he's one of the smartest, most interesting people I know, but he's also like on board. Mm-hmm. He's like, let's start with aliens are real and work backwards. You know what I mean? Not like prove it. He's so much fun in that way, and I love that. And then get Kumail, who one of my favorite things that Kumail says, I'll be like,
wait, can I guess? The thing about ghosts, and I have to change my belief system?
Yeah.
I've listened to your show a lot.
I've said that?
But I ruined the joke now.
No, it's...
You say it anyway.
You didn't ruin it. It's a perfect point. He says, like, we had a friend that sees ghosts, right? Mm-hmm. And we were like, did you know our friend Steve sees ghosts? He says he sees ghosts all the time. He can tell you, oh, there's one sitting on your mini fridge right now, and it's a sailor, and he's looking at us. And Kumail would often kind of put me at ease, because I'm like, oh my God, that's crazy. And Kumail would go, well... either he's lying or everything we know isn't true. And I just think that's such a fucking perfect thing. So I'd like to get that attitude, Kumail. I think over TJ. TJ can be a little hard to wrangle, and I say that because he's a tornado of talent and enthusiasm, not in a bad way. But Kumail, I think, get Duncan and Kumail in the same room and kind of have not even a debate, but like kind of a Pete sandwich, put one extreme there and put Kumail in the other, and have a guy who genuinely loves and respects both of their opinions and would like to reconcile it and would like to watch them kind of wrestle a little bit. I mean, physically. But yeah, I'd like to do that. I'd like to bring people back. Chelsea's going to come on the show, and we're going to play clips of every time I've mentioned her on the show.
That's really funny.
And address it. Yeah. And actually, I'd like to bring in people when Chelsea's there. Like have Chelsea kind of co-host or whatever you want to call it, and just bring someone in because she just brings. I liken her to like a sour taste to my sweet taste. I don't think she's like a sour person, but like there's something really fun. It's like Thai food, spicy and sweet at the same time. I think can be fun.
I was surprised and very excited when you started a podcast, just because I always thought of you, as primarily a stand-up. Do you still think of yourself that way?
Not to have a soundbite answer, but I've given that a lot of thought. I think of myself as a comedian. That's what I've always thought about myself. Stand-up is the fastest, leanest, cleanest burning drug version of comedy that you can get. It's the heroin. Just do the heroin. So you do stand-up.
Is that Kumail?
Yeah.
The heroin.
The heroin. You do it, and it's direct, and you feed it to the audience, and you watch them consume it. But then, like, you do a podcast, that's another type of comedy. It's still supposed to be funny. It's still supposed to be honest and explorative and kind of like an art, I suppose. A good podcast, I think, should feel like a piece of art. And a good stand-up set should feel like a piece of art, I suppose. Absolutely, I suppose. And then, like anything. And then I've done writing and I've done sketches and all that sort of stuff. It's all just comedy. We have to listen to where the thing wants to be. Something's a stand-up joke. Something's a podcast conversation. Something's a movie. Sometimes they bleed into other things. Like I was saying, I said the thing about making my bed if I think I'm going to have sex. That becomes a stand-up thing, and they start to inform each other.
Does that happen often to you, that you get material out of the podcast? Because I imagine you get material out of your day-to-day conversations, and this is pretty much the same thing.
You know what I'm interested in is, I was just thinking about this, is the turnaround, how long it takes. I did that Doug Benson episode, it feels like 6 months ago, and now I started to do the thing as a bit. It's almost like I'm waiting for a position to open up in my company of my brain, and an office cleared out, probably because I stopped doing a bit, or my subconscious stopped thinking about a certain topic. It was like, we're done thinking about balls. There's nothing funny about balls. So like, balls, you're fired. And then make bed, think, get sex moves in, and now he's in the roster, he's on the bench. I'm mixing metaphors here. But I'm interested in how long it takes. Because I'll say it on the show. Jamie Lee just did the show.
I cannot wait to listen to that.
I can't wait to listen to it, too. She's actually listening to it.
Wait, you can't wait to listen to it, but you're not going to listen to it.
You're right. I probably won't listen to it.
But she's going to listen to it and make sure
can't wait for it to come out.
Yeah. Jamie Lee is absolutely hysterical. She's so funny.
I love
2, you guys used to date.
Yeah, we dated for a year and 3 months.
That's going to be really...
the episode, again, it's just a study in a bad breakup. Like, I did it badly. It wasn't like we were screaming, yelling, and everything. I just did badly. So it's just 90 minutes of a discussion of, like, how a relationship can flare up and be lovely and beautiful, and we talked about that. We did a lot of the bits that we did when we were kind of like in the peak of the relationship, and then we talked about it falling apart, and then we talked about it becoming a friendship. It's like something I've just never really heard that
I don't think I've ever heard a couple that was legitimately a couple like dissect their own relationship, and
it was great.
I don't think I've ever heard that.
As it was happening, I was like, this is something new.
Yeah,
this is
totally new.
So yeah, I'm really excited about that. Why did I bring that up though?
I don't remember. I think you gonna remember what you were doing?
No, I doubt it.
I think you are a model for the way comedians are kind of evolving, in that you do all that stuff that I listed at the top. You voice cartoons, you do commercials, you're a very multimedia. You're doing all this different media. You wrote for TV, all this stuff, and I think that is the way. Like, I think that's what's going to have to be. I think you're going to see more and more people who are doing more things like that, as opposed to just Seinfeld. Obviously, Seinfeld's quite good at stand-up, but that was pretty much what he did.
Yeah, man, that's something that it's changing everything. Again, I told you I like to get lofty. It's changing everything. I've said that, like, my stand-up is a cookie, and then my podcast is a cookie, and they're on the same tray, and I put it in the oven. The podcast starts getting so big that it starts merging into the stand-up, and then it just becomes one huge cookie as it's baking. Ideally, everything will just start informing and folding in on it, and improving the stand-up, and improving the audience. They'll require a certain level of honesty and realness that wasn't there before. I mean, if you look back to the 80s, nobody cared if you were like, so I was on a plane today. Were you really? Was that today? Did this amazing story happen today?
I see so many people now be like, I was on a plane at some point.
Right, yeah.
Acknowledge it.
It's a real thing.
Yeah.
I just broke up with my girlfriend 6 years ago.
Right.
But the idea of diversifying, not to sound like the baby, but you do need to diversify. And I don't even think it's necessarily a business move. I think it's
that too.
It is a business move. It's out of respect for what the joke wants to be. And like I was saying, you have a joke. That's why I did New Yorker cartoons. I would write a joke and I was like, this doesn't belong in my act. That's a line from a New Yorker cartoon. So you draw a New Yorker cartoon.
That's what I've always loved about working on the internet is that like when we have an idea, whatever it may be, I think we're pretty good at like figuring out like the way to do it, be it a video or an article or a cartoon or whatever it is.
Isn't it an animation? Yeah, this is a wonderful time, and you don't really have an excuse. When I was just starting out, I was like, I'd really like to animate some of my stand-up, and then I think somebody here put me in touch with this guy who animated it, and that was like 6 years ago. So now it's even easier to find all these like young, hungry animators that'll do it and work with you and want the experience and want something fun to work on. So I mean, I've always loved the idea of Spielberg in the desert making movies with his mom, which is what he did. He had an 8mm and he'd go and make these silent movies with his mom in the desert. And now we're Spielberg in the desert right now. We have all these resources to put things out there. We can put podcasts out there that can reach a good amount of people in a pretty short amount of time. You have websites like College Humor that can get a video. Fucking how many millions of people have seen Batman? It's ridiculous.
Batman's particularly popular.
Yeah. It's pretty good.
It is.
I love it's the one that I'm wearing a mask. I've often complained
That's funny.
that I'm like the most popular thing.
But you're playing Batman.
I know. You can't complain.
Yeah.
Believe me, I'm never as happy as I am when we're doing the Batmans.
Yeah, Oren pointed out that when you search for Batman on YouTube,
it's the first thing. You type in Batman, it's the first thing.
Which is terrific.
I'm so grateful for that. And I can't wait to do more. I think we'll just always do them.
Who are the villains in the new ones? Should not?
Oh, no, I think we can say.
I think Warren may have told us anyway. Scarecrow, maybe?
Yep, we did Scarecrow from Begins. We did, God, it's such a blur. Scarecrow, Two-Face, and there were 3. And then the third one, there's no villain in it, actually. There's a fun, that's actually maybe my favorite one, but there's no villain. It's just a moment from Begins. There's actually 2 from Begins in this one. Because I think Begins is pretty funny.
You know, I don't think I've seen... I'm going to lose a lot of nerd cred on this one. I don't think I've seen Batman Begins since it was in theaters, maybe. I think I only saw it once.
Really?
Yeah.
It's really good.
Is it?
Yeah, I think so. I love origin stories.
Yeah.
I actually think that movie's much better before he puts the suit on. Once he becomes Batman, I'm like, the movie's kind of done.
I really don't remember it at all, and I guess I should probably watch it before the third one comes out.
Totally watch it again. Man.
Yeah,
it's so good.
Yeah, it's pretty good.
I actually don't think the scripts are that great, but they're just somehow a lot of lightning in a bottle. A lot of things came together. But I've said this many times, but there are a lot of stupid lines in those movies.
Yeah, you were actually just saying that on the podcast I was listening to.
Really?
I heard you say it
to Mike
to
Lawrence.
I heard you say that in My World. I heard that an hour ago.
I should listen to I should get an assistant to transcribe it. No, I don't know what I should do.
I looked into. Someone suggested transcribing these. And I kind of looked into it, and I got like a sample of one written up, and it was terrible because the way you talk doesn't read well at all. It was awful.
Grotesque and horrible and stupid.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes I'd rather read something than watch a video or listen to it. So I was like, oh, maybe and like we were saying, there's people that are never going to listen to the podcast, but maybe they're really interested in this guest. That they would read about it if I published it, but it didn't work at all. Yeah, it's meant to be in this medium,
Of course. Look at how many times I just said yeah.
Yeah.
Can you imagine reading that? Oh, God, stop saying yeah. It's the worst.
Let me make sure we covered everything I wanted to cover.
That's like what I do.
Yeah, I know. This is
But you added this part out.
Yeah. Well, maybe I'll leave it in as a tribute.
As an homage.
As a tribute to you. I did want to bring up that when you were talking to Jake and Amir about how you met everyone at College Humor, and there's one thing that Jake and Amir didn't correct you on that I want to correct you on.
Yes.
Where you were talking about how we met you and Ricky saw you, I think, and just wherever, and invited you to come pitch T-shirt ideas. Right?
I said I was at UCB and I was wearing the shirt that said Pros Before Hoes, I believe.
Which is an Amir.
And I just gave it away to Goodwill, by the way. I have too many T-shirts. And then Ricky came up at a show at UCB and said, hey, I made that shirt, or like I worked with the people that made that shirt. And then I had a general. How fucking weird is that? I had a general with Ricky, and then he was like, you should come on Tuesdays. And it seemed like one of those things that he probably didn't expect me to do, and then I started coming.
So that's the part I want to correct you on.
Yeah.
Not that I didn't expect you to do it. I don't know, maybe did or didn't, I don't know. But when you were talking to Jake and Amir, you were like, and that's probably something they pitched, like, everyone, they ask everyone, and then no one actually comes in and do it. As far as I know, no one else was ever asked to do that. Certainly no one else ever came in.
Oh, yeah.
I don't think anyone else ever got the invitation to join us to brainstorm t-shirts. Except you.
I thought you were going to call me on something bad.
No,
that
it's a good
feel
thing.
good.
No. It was a good thing.
Those were good times.
I'm starting to wrap
man.
it up. I'm going to make it real nice.
I know. I'm still proud. So when I'm on a writing staff or whatever, I will, we spend so much time together. They're going to know everything about you. And inevitably, I made T-shirts. It will always be
really?
somehow cooler than something that you might think, like E-Trade.
Yeah, it's interesting.
And then they all want them. Every staff I've been on has gotten a crate of free busted tees.
You pitched Sylph, I believe,
Sylph
which
was
has
my
a picture
first.
of a sandwich, a really sloppy sandwich that you
with a toothpick.
Yeah,
in it.
you just want to put your dick. It looks
Yeah.
like a sandwich you'd want to fuck.
Yeah.
And the shirt was so unpopular that it was our softball team.
That's why.
Yeah, because we had so many extras lying around.
I thought it was. I thought it was the softball team shirt because it was such a treasure.
No, we love. I mean, I say we. Believe me, I was not on the softball team.
Yeah.
I think everyone everyone was all too happy to be wearing them.
I didn't know that.
But I think the impetus was that. So I told you something nice you didn't know, and then,
that's
I brought you back down
fucking
to
perfect.
neutral.
A lot of the shirts that we came up with, I just had one. We talked about this. Was just the tip. My friend Laura and I came up with just the tip, and we're
Iceberg.
no, that's good. It was
I think that's been pitched.
a check with a couple dollars on
That's
it.
funny.
And it just says just the tip, and I was like, "This is fucking perfect." They drew it up, they mocked it up, and it was a no. I was like, "That's a mistake."
Well, the thing in Busted T's defense is like Sylph is a really funny joke,
Right.
But
here,
a
yeah,
lot
what
of
do I
people
know?
don't like to wear T-shirts that say they like to fuck sandwiches.
Right, or that they wanted to put just the tip of their penis.
Right.
in
Like
the
it's kind
vagina.
of people generally like the vulgar ones, even a really good vulgar one, which I
Yeah.
think Sylph and just the tip could be.
Yeah.
People don't like.
I'd
People,
hit
they
that
just don't sell.
is one of your biggest
Yeah, I'd
sellers.
hit that sells really well.
I'd hit that as just on this side of the
Yeah.
line. You could wear that to Thanksgiving.
I believe I'd hit that. He's in Knocked Up. I think Seth Rogen
It is. He
wears
is wearing it,
which
Yep.
is kind of cool.
Yeah. I'm waiting for Huma to be in the next Apatow.
That's a funny one. I think they still
Huma is
sell it.
okay. You know what I just pitched, which I thought was great?
What's that?
It was German phone, and it's the numbers 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, no, instead of 9.
That's funny.
And then
so
it's-
wait, does it say German phone?
And then underneath it says German phone. It's not perfect,
Yeah, it's a
but
little-
wait for it. And then it says *0 swastika.
A little too many moving parts in that one for a
It's like a
t-shirt.
watch.
You gotta honor the joke.
Yeah. No, I didn't expect that to sell.
Pete, thank you so much for doing this. I mean, obviously we've me and a lot of college humor people. We've known about you for a while. Now I see you blowing up, and like everyone's like, "Oh, Pete's so funny." I'm like, "Yeah, where you guys been?" Pete's been, like, I don't think you're any funnier than you were 8 years ago.
well, I
think
appreciate
you've always been this good, and it's great to see you getting your due.
Thanks, man. Thanks for having me on.
Of course.
It's the longest conversation we've had, and
That's not true. We've shared a hotel room.
I know. We've eaten pizza on the Mexican border.
Is that true? Oh, at that place
Yeah, the Cole,
in
and we drank
Texas.
Mexican Coke.
I thought it was so funny. This is so Pete when someone we were out did those shoots with Corey and Dave.
Yeah.
And I don't know if someone posted that picture of us drinking the we went to this
Yeah.
Mexican food
Yeah.
place and you
Huge margarita.
yeah, we got these margaritas and you asked for not that much mix and you got into a fight with them.
I remember. I was just like, I'm not trying to scam you.
Yeah.
I just like the taste of tequila. Would you please not put as much
She was a
juice
little
in it?
prickly about it.
Yeah.
But this is 5 or 6 years ago, and
Yeah.
you just complained about it again on Facebook.
I did?
Yeah. Well, it was a few months ago now, but you were like, that picture, you were like, no mix, please, with no explanation. And then it was so funny that I was like,
It's my thing.
Yeah.
Some people. I mean, if you get a margarita in Mexico, it's just tequila, triple sec, if that, and lime juice.
yeah, sometimes they're a little heavy on the mix and they'll give you a headache.
Oh, yeah. Nobody needs it. Nobody.
Yeah.
I'm 50-50 with all wait staff. I was just saying, I had brunch with Jamie yesterday, and I was like, I'm 50-50 with wait staff. Either they love me or they hate me.
I can see that.
But at least-
you're going to be a great dad with the
Right.
waiters. I can
Oh,
see
yeah.
it.
It's my destiny.
Yeah.
It's my destiny to embarrass small toe-headed children.
Yeah.
So we'll make it happen.
Pete, thanks again.
Thanks, man.
That's it for this week's show. You may have noticed the introduction was not done by me this week. Like Tom Sawyer convincing kids to paint the fence, I somehow talked you guys into explaining what the enhanced version of the show is. The introduction on this episode came from Steven, all the way from the UK. Thank you, Steven. If you guys want to do the introduction for one episode, send me a recording, explain the basics. You've heard them by now 41 times, 40 times? Oh my God, have I done 40? This is 40. This is episode 40. You've heard 40 of them. You know the details. Don't worry about the noise. Don't worry about a picture. I'll put that stuff in. If you've got a picture you'd like me to put in, include that with your submission. Email it to jeffrubin@jeffrubinshow.com. So the whole thing is jeffrubinshow.com. And thank you so much for listening. If you want to keep up on my shit, I'm on Twitter. That's @JeffRubinShow. I'm on Tumblr, jeffrubin.com. I am on Facebook. I don't know the address for that. You just type in Jeff Rubin, it shows up. And youtube.com/Jeff Rubin. Jeff Rubin, thank you guys for listening.